Welcome to this Killik Explains finance video. This week, a slightly ambitious claim how a cash flow model could change your life. Now, before you switch off and think, cash flow model sounds technical, change my life, big claim, well, let's take a look, because these things actually are pretty useful, even if you don't know how to prepare one yourself. So, let's take a look at these things. Background is what? Basically, most of us find it hard to make financial forecasts in our head, but it's really important. There are key decisions we have to make, and I'll mention a few of them in a moment, which need mapping, which need extrapolating, and that's quite difficult to do because the number of inputs on a decision, even like when can I afford to buy a house, for example, let alone when can I afford to retire, are many and varied. So all the cash flow model does is condense that down. Cash flow models take away the need, therefore, to hold lots of information in your head and then sort of revise it mentally. It's almost like a 3D challenge that most people are not too good at. So how do they help? And also, if you're going to have a go at one, how do you make sure it's as useful as possible? So, what is a cash flow forecast? Now, this is a short video. I'm not going to build one for you here. I'm just going to mention some key facets of cash flow forecast. You can get them off the shelf, you can get an advisor to help you build one, you might be comfortable to build your own in Excel, but however you do it, what is it? Basically, it starts with income and expenditure, assets and liabilities. So it starts with a personal balance sheet. Where am I now? What are my assets? House, investments, cash and so on. What are my obligations? Don't miss any out. Mortgages, personal loans. So what are the things that I owe, if you like? That's your net position. Hopefully positive, but not always, because early in life, some people carry a lot of debt, student loans and so on. And then income and expenditure. So, do I understand my current level of income, presumably from an employer, or you might be self-employed? Do I understand where my money is going, what I'm spending? And a forerunner to putting together a decent cash flow model can be some sort of budget, so you understand exactly where your money is going each day, week and month. It's not the most exciting thing to do, but it's quite important. Then you're basically looking to build that out into the future so that you can understand where you're going and make decisions and understand whether or not you're going to achieve your goals and when. So it's quite a handy document, this thing, and it identifies key decision points. It helps to clarify when certain things are possible in your financial life. So, when will I be able to afford a house? I mean, some people think, well, a cash flow model sounds very grand. It sounds like something only wealthy people put together. Not necessarily. Simple decision like, if I keep saving at this rate and I make certain assumptions, will I have enough for a property deposit in 5 years' time, for argument's sake? Well, that's something that a simple model can help with. What impact will school fees have on my finances? That's a big one for parents. Do we go private? Do we stay in the state system? If we're going to go private, do we start from the beginning, from the very beginning, if you like, or do we kick that in at sort of secondary school level? Do we kick it in at sixth form level? Are we going to do it for all our kids? Well, presumably we need to be consistent. Modelling that out, cash flows can be really helpful in that context. When can I retire? That's a biggie. And when, if I will, would I run out of money if things go wrong? And that's a biggie for a lot of people. When can I afford to retire? And sometimes a cash flow model can actually reveal a fairly positive answer, a bit sooner than you thought, actually. And when will I run out of money? Well, hopefully you won't run out of money, but under what scenario could I run short of money, or even not run out, but just have less than I hoped I'd have to achieve the goals I've got in mind? So, quite useful documents, these things. Now, here's an example. Don't turn off the video at this point. This is not intended to be something you can read in detail. It's not even intended to be yours. You can design these things different ways, but here is one, and the point of it is just this. Don't try and read all the writing at the top. This is somebody who's thinking, well, I'm in my 40s now, I've got some goals I want to achieve, including paying for my own retirement, giving some money to my kids. What does that look like? So you won't be able to read the axes, but basically it builds out several cases based on a low rate of return, a mid rate of return, and a high rate of return. And essentially, this is just not intended to be read in detail, but it's just saying that under those base cases, assuming that my investments grow at a certain rate, I will run out of money at different points. And what this is revealing is that actually, unless you get the very low return case, this person's not going to run out of money until they're in their 90s, and they never run out of money, basically, as long as they get the mid or high returns. Now, nobody knows which of those colourful lines you're going to travel along, because no one has a crystal ball into the future. But the point is a cash flow model really helps you to just understand where you are and where you may be able to get to in the future. And as I say, that's something that most people will find hard to project from the age of 42 right the way out to the age of 90, unless their brains function differently to most normal humans. So, as I say, don't worry if you can't read that, and I'm sure you can't read that, but the point is that's how it could look, and that's how it can help. It extrapolates out where you're going to be at certain points in the future, given certain assumptions. Now, the three key ingredients. If you're going to build one of these things, what do you need to think about? Well, easy for me to say, but you need a complete information at the right level of detail. What do I mean by complete information? Make sure that when you're looking down your liability list at the beginning of your personal balance sheet, you don't miss anything. Have you got your mortgage in there? Have you got all personal loans in there? Because if you miss something at the beginning, the effect is fairly dramatic in terms of extrapolating over time. And have you got the right level of detail? Now, some people go a bit mad. Some people try and extrapolate their financial life on a line by line, like the 50 or 100 line level of detail basis. They try to budget everything. That's not realistic, and it's frankly mega time consuming, and there's a danger that you miss the bigger picture as you go. So you want all of your income and expenditure captured, but you don't need it down to the last item and line of expenditure in every case. So getting the level of detail right is a judgment. Making sure you got all the relevant information in there is also important. Then making realistic assumptions about what? Big one, the level of inflation. So looking forward, inflation is going to erode the value of your income, for example. So picking a rate at which that's likely to happen and understanding that if that rate changes, it can have a ripple effect over time, that's important. Then growth rate. So you're thinking, well, I've got some investments. Hopefully they'll grow over time, but making realistic assumptions about what rate they might grow and being prepared to tweak the plan if you exceed or go below that rate is important too. And then regular reviews. And in the middle, by the way, assumptions include when will I need money? If I'm planning to give money away to my kids, for example, when's that going to happen? How much is it likely to be? So I'm not saying this is easy, but it does focus your mind on some key future decisions. And regular reviews. Some people go, right, done that, put it in a drawer. No, this is a dynamic document. Now, you need to be getting out and living your life. You don't want to be looking at it every day, but a minimum once a year, you want to be reviewing this thing, saying, what assumptions did I make before? Have they changed? Has my life changed? More children? Second wife? Okay, things happen in such a way that I need to review the plan. Garbage in, garbage out then. So this is just worth noting. Make sure you've captured all the relevant information. Then make a judgment about the level of detail, and the result needs to be useful and usable. So it is a trade-off. Useful means you've captured everything that's relevant to your cash flow model. Usable means it's not so detailed that you can't make head or tail of it at the end. And that very simple chart I showed you with the 3 scenarios is the kind of thing you might want to produce. You don't want the result to be just a load of columns and numbers. You want it to be something visual like a chart, because that's frankly easier and more interesting to look at. Assumptions, really important. Inflation's a big one. The rule of 72 says if you take the number 72 and divide it by what you think inflation is going to be, that tells you how many years it'll take to halve your money in real terms. I've done a video on that, not surprisingly, but inflation's a biggie. People don't realise the effect it has over time. The timing of additions and withdrawals I've mentioned, and growth rates. So those are the big ones, and those might require a bit of discussion to get right. And regular reviews. And by the way, if you're thinking, well, this is impossible, you can't forecast inflation, you can't forecast growth rates, you probably can forecast that, all right? Better to have a go. As Sir David Tweedy put it, better to be roughly right than to give up and run the risk of being absolutely wrong. And regular reviews. This is the point I made. It's a dynamic document. The timing and size of cash flows can change, your life can change, all right? Your access to income, your budgeting can change, for example. That's important. So review it at least once a year. It's a balance. Review it too often, all right, and you'll become obsessed by it, if you like, ruled by it, and it is meant to be a tool at the end of the day, but don't do it often enough. And when you do take a look at it, you might find it's run completely out of date. So there you have it. To find out more, well, there are 2 places you could go. The latest issue of Confidant has a big spread from Svenja Keller on cash flow modelling, how to do it, some of the pitfalls, and that example that I mentioned, which you probably struggled to see earlier on. So there's one place you can go. And then of course there's me, editor at killik.com, and my video library, killik.com/learn. And then for this stuff, I'd probably go to the tax effective saving tab.